I think that everybody has times when they ghost to some degree. You know, there are times when you have to ignore somebody because their messages to you are so incessant and so frequent that it's impossible to keep up with it all, and you have to let them go. But there are some of you out there who routinely ghost as your go-to way of handling interpersonal friction or handling situations where you just don't know what to say. And instead of saying to the other person, I don't know what to say right now, let me think, you just give them silence. And the silence is indefinite. I want to take a moment to just let you understand that when you do this thing of not replying to our messages for an extended period of time, there is a point where we switch from having to think, oh, maybe they're thinking about how to answer, to having to think, maybe this person is done with me forever. And if it is the case that you are 100% done, that's your prerogative. It's your prerogative to be 100% done with another person. Nobody can make you continue to talk to people you don't like or don't want to be with. But what you should bear in mind is that the other person doesn't know that that's what you're thinking. They don't know what's going on in your head. So they're having to cast aspersions over it, and this is partly where the problem begins. If it's really the case that they're having to think that you just want them to be dead to them, they're having to wonder, oh, is this person pronouncing that much judgment over me? And even that's not that big of a deal. You know, a person can develop their self-confidence to the extent where they won't care about that. The problem is, though, you ghosters aren't always consistent. Some of you will do the thing where you'll completely ignore a person on social media, and then when you meet them in real life, you'll talk to them like they're a person and treat them like they're a normal human being. And granted, I get that some of you are just so quiet and non-communicative, and it's so hard to earn your trust that you may ghost people and be really quiet of them in the real world. And that's actually understandable, because in that case at least you're being consistent with your personality type. But if you're somebody who claims to be extroverted and you regularly reply to other people and the person can see it, and even worse, you're acknowledging them out in the real world but not acknowledging them on social media, that's where things get really messy, because that person has no idea where they stand with you anymore. They're in this awkward limbo of wanting more contact with you than they're getting, and never getting it, and yet at the same time they don't get to be completely disengaged from you because you continue to talk to them in the real world as if they're a person. So my advice to you would be consistent at the very least. If you can't answer consistently, if you can't, at least offer the explanation of, oh, I'm sorry, I was busy, or I'm sorry, I had to think, just, even if you want to be done with the person, it's not that hard to message them and say, yeah, I'm sorry, things aren't going to work out with us, I don't want to know you anymore, sorry. It's not that hard to say. It's one message you send off, and if they're not taking it, then you ghost them. Then you don't acknowledge them, because at least then they have the information to know where they stand with you and to understand it. And that's the real crux of the problem there. When you ghost somebody, they don't get the reassurance of knowing that things are really over with you and therefore being able to move on, nor do they get the reassurance of knowing that they have the option of moving on without potentially hurting your feelings, because maybe you really are just thinking about it. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there who would just immediately take your behavior as radical disrespect. And I used to be one of those people. I'm not inclined to anymore, because I've communicated it with enough people who enjoy ghosting to understand that really they're just doing it from a place of sometimes just not knowing what to say, or feeling that the actual conversation would be worse than the silence. I'm going to tell you right now that is not true. That is not true at all. The conversation is always better than the silence. The silence is the real killer, because in the silence you have to live in a constant state of ambiguity, and you never get truly released from it. You never get fully released from it, because you never get to know what would have happened if you had just held out. I mean, the thing that I've started to do now is that if a person continues to ghost me to the extent where I'm finding myself distressed by it, I just have to cut them out of my life completely in order to be able to function. And granted, that's possibly a product of my age grouping, because I come from an age group that's the last remnants that took phone calls for granted and didn't know a world where there was such a thing as instant messaging. So, you know, I come from an age set where we could take it for granted that people would either answer you instantly or take time to answer you in the form of letters or notes. You know, for us, this whole thing of being able, in theory, to answer someone instantly and then not even having the courtesy to say, sorry, I'm busy right now, or sorry, I took so long, here's what I think. You know, we come from a generation that is used to getting an answer. And I don't think that that's exclusive to my age group. I think there will be people who are younger than me who face the same predicament, where they are accustomed to getting an answer. And in fact, I would argue, what is the point of having giving people the ability to contact you and then refusing to answer them? To me, that doesn't make any sense. To me, that seems exceedingly rude and unnecessarily hostile. But I'm going to try to take the words of ghosters on face value and try to take it as truth when they say that they're not doing it from a place of malice and derision, which is what a lot of people tend to feel when they're getting ghosted. They feel that they're being made fun of, they're feeling disrespected, they're feeling like the other person just has infinite contempt for them. I'm trying to take the words of ghosters on face value when they say this is not how they really think. But give us a hand at least. Try when you're ghosting somebody, at least try to tell them where they stand with you. Just try to give them one little indication. Even if it's just one message and you never speak to them again, at least do that much. Because you're really going to save that person a lot of trauma. Because what I can say for my part right now is, because I've been ghosted as much as I have, I've reached the point where I don't actually trust anyone to stay as part of my life. And granted, I have underlying abandonment issues that make that worse, but I'm not going to be the only person with abandonment issues out there. And you don't know who has abandonment issues and who doesn't until you actually talk to them. So, you know, at the very least, don't just drop us like a sack of bad potatoes. At least tell us that you're done with us. And mean it. Like, don't see us at a party and then think, oh, that's such and such, I'll strike up a conversation with us. No. If you are so finished with us that you aren't going to answer our messages, don't talk to us at all. Be done and mean it. Okay? Just mean it. That's all I'm gonna say.